when personal life disruption makes novelty feel strategic. What the end of a relationship is teaching me about baseline resilience and strategic thinking. There's a sensation I've noticed showing up at times of disruption, not chaos, more like a pressure that says something in life now must change. A trip starts to seem overdue. A career move takes on extra force. Plans that had been sitting quietly in the background suddenly feel urgent. I've been noticing that pressure recently. A significant relationship has ended, and with it the familiar impulse to rearrange everything else around it. Maybe I should trade my car in for a motorhome and take a road trip. Maybe I should finally move on the conservation work I've been putting off. Maybe I should take the job offer that's come in. Maybe I should start trying to learn an instrument again. Maybe I should move to Portugal. Each option arrives with the same feeling attached to it: forward motion, empowerment. The trouble is that forward motion and strategic thinking are not the same thing, but during disruption they can feel identical from the inside. The problem isn't action itself, it's action taken from a disrupted baseline, where the desire for something different starts to impersonate good judgment. The difference between novelty and strategy. When I look back at past decisions I'd wincingly call non-strategic, the issue usually wasn't the decision on paper. Some of them worked out well enough. The issue was the state I was in when I made them. The present felt difficult to tolerate, and the future needed to look different quickly. Grief does this. So does uncertainty. So does any period where the structures that normally give days their shape have loosened or disappeared. When the usual anchors are gone, my mind starts generating alternatives at speed. Each one seems charged. Each one carries the suggestion that acting on it will settle something internally. Usually it doesn't. It just changes the setting. Strategy is about improving your position over time. The pull toward novelty is often about getting away from how things feel now. Sometimes those point in the same direction. Often they don't. Travel can be a good idea, so can a new career move, so can a move toward work that matters more deeply. But when the main appeal is that life would look unmistakably different, that's worth treating with more than a fleeting sense of suspicion. A life change can be right and still be chosen for the wrong reason. Baseline resilience. At the age of 35 and a half, the phrase baseline resilience finally clicked into place for me. It means something fairly plain: the minimum level of functioning I want to protect even when everything else feels unsettled. Sleep, food, training, work that still matters. Some basic structure to the day, not because these things are profound, but because they keep me from becoming unreliable to myself. This matters because disruption has a way of making stability look suspect. Routine starts to feel like stagnation. Consistency feels passive. The ordinary disciplines can seem too small for the size of the feeling. When there's a lot moving internally, keeping the same habits can almost look like denial. But I've found the opposite. The boring things are often the only things keeping the floor in place. And once that floor goes, judgment tends to go with it. I've learnt to be wary of any plan that requires me to abandon the few things that reliably keep me clear-headed. That doesn't mean the plan is wrong. It does mean it deserves more scrutiny, not less. Preserving optionality isn't stalling. There is obviously a way to use patience as camouflage. It's possible to delay decisions indefinitely and call it discernment. Not every pause is wise. But preserving optionality isn't the same as drifting. It means not forcing a commitment while your judgment is being bent by urgency. It means keeping paths open long enough to assess them from steadier ground. For me, that often looks less impressive than the mind wants it to. Stay where I am a little longer. Keep the process going on opportunities that might matter. Don't turn every new option into an answer to the whole period I'm in. More often than I'd like, the right move is the least dramatic one. Stay put, stay consistent, and keep doing the things that move the needle in ways that are hard to appreciate day to day, but become abundantly obvious over time. That kind of action rarely feels good on contact. It doesn't produce relief. It doesn't give the satisfying sense that a new chapter has begun, which is exactly why it's easy to miss. Movement without abandoning the baseline. None of this means the answer is always to do nothing. Sometimes a change in scene helps. Sometimes a move really is right. Sometimes the thing you've been putting off genuinely is the next step. The question is whether the impulse survives inspection. I keep coming back to that with things I do genuinely want, like volunteer or conservation work, and with ideas that seem to offer movement without total instability. What interests me now is less the fantasy of escape than whether there's a way to move without wrecking the baseline in the process. That feels like a better test than asking whether something is exciting or overdue. Does this choice support the parts of life that keep me steady, or is it mainly attractive because it lets me feel that something has changed, and that I've recovered some sense of being the agent of change in my own life? A desire can be real and still get recruited into avoidance. That's part of what makes disrupted periods hard to think clearly inside. Recognizing the pattern is the work. I've come to think of this as a skill, noticing urgency before it hardens into a story about what must happen next. I've made enough non-strategic choices to recognize the sequence by now. Something destabilizes, big options start to glow, a convincing narrative forms around why one of them is clearly the answer. Sometimes the move itself isn't even bad, but the reasoning behind it is thinner than it first appears, and the timing is doing more work than I want to admit. What's different now isn't that the pull has gone away, it hasn't. It's that I can see it earlier, and seeing it earlier usually points me back to the same place. Hold the baseline, keep the options open, and let the more dramatic ideas survive a period of steadiness before reorganizing life around them. If a plan still makes sense after a stretch of ordinary, disciplined life, it's probably real. If it only made sense when I felt desperate for things to look different, that tells me something too. Now, back to browsing the classifieds for a new motorhome. And a piano.